Yes. Cool. No, but yes, it's good. It's worth playing in 2024. Um, there is a couple issues. Most of them are pretty minor, but there's one big glaring issue that I had a huge problem with. I assume Little Nightmares 2 and the upcoming Little Nightmares 3 will have a better uh, will fix those issues. But for Little Nightmares 1, there's one main issue. We'll get to that at the end. A lot of positives. A lot of positives. We'll start with the good, and then we'll get to the bad. First, the graphics. This game came out 7 years ago, so you would think there'd be some aging and some quirkiness and some things that just don't seem right. No, this looks like it came out yesterday. The game is phenomenal looking. It is gorgeous. It is beautiful. It is every other good looking word. Absolutely stunning game. Truly. Another one, soundtrack. The soundtrack is incredible. Probably one of my top 10 video game soundtracks. It's not as good as, the Dark Souls soundtracks, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, Stray even. But it's up there. It's very, very good. I'll probably listen to it, well, the day this video comes out, which is Saturday. I'll probably be listening to it as I'm doing chores and my due diligences and shopping spree and whatever. I truly loved it. I think that's what will bring me back to the Little Nightmares universe the most. Which might be strange to say, but it's the truth. Suspense only in the first half. The second half of the game, by that point, I didn't feel the same tenseness that I did in the first half. Besides the end of the game, there was a bit of a jump scare that got me. But in my defense, it had to do with one of my biggest fears. I'm just saying. This is my first time playing through, so went in blind. I didn't really know what was going on. There was definitely a few times where I cowered in the corner and tried to hide, which didn't work, but it was an attempt made. I was shaking, my palms were sweaty, my knees weak, arms were heavy. No vomit on my sweater though, so that's good, because that'd be a pain to wash out. Let's move on to the not so good, but not bad either. Starting with the puzzles. It's a huge part of the game, and none of them were really that challenging. There was some that were just a bit confusing, because you would have to, find a key, and it would be, up and around, but you start here, and then you go here, you don't see it, because it's in a dark corner, and you don't actually get light until you try to do something else first, and then they turn the light on, then you could possibly see the key, then you have to figure out how to get to the key, which isn't hard, and then you have to run back down, and back this way, and open this, and then run around so you don't get killed, and then go through, and it was like that for most of the puzzles. The last 2/3 of the game was almost the exact same thing over and over and over again. There was some uniqueness, of course. There were some new challenges put in, some challenges taken out. But all in all, it did start to really feel like it was just the same shit with different rooms. But they were still good. They weren't anything awful. They weren't necessarily boring. They just weren't the most enticing either. The world building, again with the graphics, great. I didn't realize until the end, minor spoiler if you haven't played, that you were on a ship the whole time. It would make sense because, it's rocking, but slow brain, I guess. With the world building, there wasn't really a whole lot else besides the tenseness, the dark rooms, the really ugly people. Some of the ugliest creatures I've ever seen. It was gross. On the story side of the world building, it was just confusing. And I'm sure in the second game, even though I know it's a prequel, I'm sure it makes things make more sense. And then the upcoming third game, which I think comes out next year, I could be wrong on that, don't quote me, I'm sure it's gonna add more sense to what's going on, add more lore. The lore! But it really just felt like there was pieces of a story there, but they didn't actually finish it. There was definitely things that at the end of the game left me very just kind of underwhelmed. I was hoping for more answers, but I wound up leaving the game with way more questions than answers. It happens. It's not just this game. Most games, I feel like, nowadays kind of have the same fault. Because they try and create a franchise. Everything is about franchises now. Side tangent. Everything is about franchises. Scream, 6 movies, still going. John Wick is having side movies. One of my favorite franchises of all time, but I'm still gonna knack on it for doing the same shit everybody else does. Smile's another one. There's a second one, and I'm sure they're gonna make a third one if they can. Everything needs to be a franchise now. It can't just be a single game. So because of that, I'm sure they went in planning a second game ahead of time. But it definitely left the story to feel a bit empty. Which, it wasn't a huge deal. You didn't really think about it until, like, the quiet moments. But it was still lingering in the back of your brain, and it definitely took a little bit from the game. Big glaring issue. Biggest gripe I have. And if you've caught my streams, if not, you can rewatch them. If you want. They are a bit long. But my biggest gripe with the game, the controls are so clunky. And it's not necessarily like the keyboard situation. Like, you're not doing weird acrobats with your fingers to just move left or right. Left, right. Whoops. Yeah. It's different for you, but you know what I mean. Everything has just ungodly hitboxes and collision physics. You're trying to... There's so many scenes where you have to walk through, like, a tiny little gap. I mean, tiny. Like, the width of your character, almost. You have to walk through that, but there's a box here, there's a barrel here, there's a little cup here, and you, even if you're trying to go around it, your character still hits every single fucking object in its way. And on the parts of the game where you have to just run forward, all you're doing is holding right and holding shift to run. Oh, my nose is running. Ooh. It really took away from very important scenes, and this kind of goes back into the suspense where a lot of it was taken away because you have to do the same fucking thing 4 times in a row because you keep walking into a box. Ugh. You get stuck on everything in the game. Everything. It is a huge pain in the ass. Last 2 chapters of the game, it was happening so much I almost just wanted to stop playing. I'm glad I didn't, because the ending was fascinating. Again, the soundtrack got better. Not that it was bad, but more songs, more good. But the physics, man, were just so not fun at all. On top of that, jumping worked like half of the time. If you were just slightly too close to an object, like not touching, but like this close to an object, again, because of the collision things, it would like try to duck or like grab onto it instead of jumping like you're trying to let it do. So again, on like chase scenes where you have to run away from someone and then climb out to something, climb onto a different thing, and then jump here and then zip line away, you have to do it like 2 or 3 times because you keep fucking not being able to jump. And the scenes are so tight where if you stop sprinting for even a second, you're screwed and you have to restart. Again, like I said earlier, I'm positive, I'm like 95% sure that the second game and the upcoming third game has way better collision physics and way better jumping mechanics. I'm sure they do. But this video is not about those games. It is about this game, and in Little Nightmares 1, the biggest issue is the collision. So clunky. The mechanics really just took some of the enjoyment away. Some. A little bit more than some of the enjoyment away at the end. I just wanted to get it over with at that point. But all in all, it was still a good game. I highly recommend you still play it if you haven't already. Or maybe you played it when it first came out and you were thinking, hey, maybe I should go back and replay that since the third game's coming out. I do think you should play it. Depending on the price. I don't know how much it is. Base price. I got it on sale for like $5. What I'd pay $10 for it. For what it was and what it was trying to accomplish, it did pretty good. So, unofficially, the sweet and sour scale, because I need to fix that. I'm going to do animations and the whole 9 yards in the future. But right now, for the sweet and sour scale, I give it a 75%. It was a good game, but the one big glaring issue really took a lot away from it. I'll figure out an actual outro eventually. In the meantime, bye-bye.